Am I the asshole for telling my kids what their grandfather did to me? I've been with my husband since high school and his dad has always made me uncomfortable. Phil adores, borderline worships, his wife and is very cold to everyone else. I always thought the family dynamic was a bit weird but everyone else was nice. Mill is questionable but I love his siblings. I got pregnant right out of high school and we needed financial help. Around the same time Mill was diagnosed with late-stage cancer and the prognosis was not great. Phil was devastated. I mean he pretty much stopped speaking to anyone but her. Mill has always been vain and she had a nervous breakdown when she started losing her hair. They are well off and she had the best wigs money could buy. I guarantee most people didn't know she was wearing a wig but it was very hard on her. I have long blonde hair, as did she. Apparently my hair was triggering her so Phil told me it had to go. I told him that was unfair. He told me I could cut it or be homeless. I agreed and he took scissor and cut it off. I wasn't expecting him to just do it like that and it looked terrible. That was 10 years ago. Mill did make it, though it was a long road. All of Phil's kids view him as a hero because he took such good care of her but I still hold a lot of resentment. My kids are not allowed around them without me or my husband present. The kids are pretty indifferent to Phil but adore Mill and recently were questioning why they can't have sleepovers like their cousins do. I was honest about what he did and why I don't trust him. My kids ended up calling Mill and Phil and confronting them. Mill made excuses and made it all about her. My 8-year-old daughter got very upset and said that she doesn't want to see them anymore. Mill swore at me, kids weren't present, and said I poisoned him against her. I said that her own husband's actions did that. Mill isn't talking to me currently and accused me of making fun of her cancer. She always plays the victim when she is cornered, but for the most part people are on my side. Not the asshole. Wow, what he did to you was horrible. He took away your autonomy and threatened to make you homeless if you didn't give it up. Honestly, you should go NC. Info. There's lots of details missing here. So other than the single, hair-cutting event, what is the rest of your relationship with him like? Has the inappropriateness of that incident ever been discussed with him since? Most importantly, where is your husband in all this? What was his response to his father cutting your hair? How does he feel about you telling your children this? Not the asshole. You were being honest with your children as to why they couldn't spend the night. Not the asshole. What he did was horrendous and I think you're being incredibly gracious letting them have any contact at all with him. Not the asshole. So Phil threatened you with homelessness if you didn't cut your hair because it was triggering Mill who was losing her hair due to a cancer battle. And when you agreed he took it upon himself to cut it, and going even further than you expected. That's messed up. Yeah, if he has the capacity to be that level of SHTTY, who knows what else he's capable of. Personally, I'd go NC towards them and it sounds like your kids wouldn't disagree. Not the asshole. Your kids are old enough to understand why you don't trust or like your in-laws and what they did is horrific and toxic. I hope your husband has your back when it comes to this conflict since it's his parents' fault. Info. How old are your kids? You mention one is 8. How old are the rest? Not the asshole. But while Mill was vain, Phil is an abuser. I think you were right to tell the kids what he did. Not the asshole. First things first, cutting someone's hair against their will is considered assault for a reason. The psychological damage is very real. It's been treated as a criminal punishment in many cultures for decades for a reason. What he did was a form of abuse and bullying. Secondly, the kids had a right to know what kind of person their grandfather is. My dad was very honest with us when we got old enough to ask certain questions about his relationship with his dad. I'm glad he was because when those behaviors began to appear towards us we were prepared for it. Mill sounds vain but okay. Phil sounds like a cruel person and can't be trusted to act in the best interest of anyone but his wife. Info. I had a hard time believing that your husband had no reaction to that at all. My husband would have been throwing hands if anyone, even family, approached me with scissors and he'd take on homelessness before allowing me to suffer with toxic people. What does DH think about all this? Is he around? There's a lot of missing information here. Not the asshole, and the truth shall set you free. Don't do something that you might regret. Seems like he is regretting his actions and that you told the truth. You kept his secret for 10 long years. He should be thanking you. Not the asshole. You said what happened and the kids can do what they want. But the way you talk about Mill is disgusting. Losing your hair while you have cancer is devastating. Has nothing to do with being vain and she could buy the expensive wigs. No one knew they were wigs. She knew. Hair makes your identity, you're losing it out of your own control. This is not easy at all, and the way you think she is vain because of that says a lot about your character. What Phil did was atrocious and abusive, no apology for that. Not the asshole. Your kids are old enough to make their own choices about seeing family. That was next level nastiness. Phil's actions were malicious and contemptible. Cutting a woman's hair has been used as punishment for hundreds of years. Honestly, he's not stable and has the capacity for violence, so not having your children around him is a big okay by me. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Your Phil was horrible and he is to blame for this. Not the asshole. Just one question. Where was your husband in all this? Those are his parents. Didn't he ask why your hair was short all of a sudden? Or did he know and let his father threaten you? I feel like I want to hear other sides to this story before I pass judgment. Another part in the obsessed uncaring Phil, narcissistic vain Mill, and poor, abused Dill series. Sigh. What is your husband's stance on this? Not the asshole. Kids aren't stupid. If you had lied, you'd hardly be setting a good example to your kids, would you? Of course, sometimes the truth doesn't need to be said. However, when it has something to do with your kids, if they ask, you tell them, and you did. They then phoned their grandparents up for clarification and all they got was lies. Your in-laws have dug their grave and now they have to lie in it. This was a perfect opportunity for them to have some redemption and show they, Phil, were sorry it had happened, but instead they decided to act the victim. Kids are not stupid. Not the asshole. You were honest about what they did and why he didn't trust them, but keep in mind that you also got your kids into the situation. Remind your kids that these private conversations should generally stay at home. It's not their job to confront him, it's yours. Not the asshole. That's some flowers in the attic crap there. Not the asshole. I'm so glad you were honest and transparent with your children. What a horrible Phil, and it sounds like Mill is also manipulative. I wouldn't want to be around them, nor would I want my children around them. Your Phil is the asshole here, but so is your husband. If he knew or had any knowledge of this at the time and didn't completely explode, then I'd take a look at the relationship. If that was done to my partner, there would be hell to pay, and I definitely wouldn't have contact with him anymore. Context doesn't matter here. That is psychotic behavior. Not the asshole. Your Phil is just not right mentally. I can't begin to imagine what kind of entitlement it takes to demand someone else cut their hair because someone is having problems with their own hair. And given your MIL's reaction and no attempt made to apologize or accept how messed up Phil and MIL's actions and attitude are, it's a good thing you are keeping your kids from them. NTA, one of my favorite things to remember when people get upset about the truth coming out is, if people wanted you to speak better of them, they should have behaved better. They made this bed, and now they get to lay in it. Info. Where is your husband during all this? He just sat there and didn't defend his wife. Info. What was your husband doing when Phil cut your hair against your will? Is everyone giving this a wholesome award because they got it for free? If so, sheesh guys. Find a wholesome post and put it there. Secrets make you sick. This is so cliché, but it's true. You needed to tell your kids. They made a good judgment call. I can see it from your perspective as a mother. You don't want to upset your children, but it's worse to have something insidious in the relationship. Not the asshole. They asked and you should be honest with them. Phil is horrible. I wouldn't want my kids around him either. Not the asshole. I'm glad your Mill beat cancer. I know that can be a rough slog. However, that doesn't give her or her husband to treat you like that. They did a terrible thing to you and are now reaping what they have sown by losing their relationship with their grandkids. Honestly, the Mill sounds like she has a personality disorder and her husband sounds like a codependent enabler. Mill. Her hair is triggering me. Phil. How dare you keep your natural hair? Cut it off now. Now. Mill. Why do my grandchildren hate me? I don't know, man, this seems to be tough, but if I had to guess, it has to do with you being an abusive narcissist who couldn't stand your Dill having natural hair and forced her to choose between having a home or no hair. Not the asshole. Your kids are old enough to understand and make their own decisions on whether to keep up with certain family members. Very soft. You are the asshole for telling your kids. This will be downvoted to oblivion, but you need to hear this for your kids. My mother would tell me about emotional abuse she suffered from my dad's family. I was 12 years old. She continued to use me as her confidant. I didn't realize at that time that it was another form of emotional abuse. However, now I don't have good relationship with my mother. Whenever I talk to her I feel stressed out because I never had good time in conversation with her as a lot of it was her unloading her emotional baggage on me. Your kids are even younger than I was. Sure, your kids will take your side now and cry for you, but is it worth ruining your relationship with your kids in future? I hope you don't make this a habit. This might sound weird, but I feel you are the asshole for telling your very young children about this. I understand everything else, supervised visits etc., and you are completely justified and have been wronged. However, as someone who has had to have dealt with family drama and infighting from a young age, it can have a negative effect on your kids' mental health in the long term. It's best to play it carefully, but what's done is done. Sounds like he was jealous that his wife was losing her hair so went after yours. Sounds like a creep. Forced haircutting is literally assault. You were assaulted. I am so sorry. Not the asshole. You are better than I cause the moment he did that I would have taken the scissors and stabbed him. He also would have never been around my children. Not once. Not the asshole at all. Karma always comes back around. Can I take a moment to say how cool it is your 8-year-old can articulate what she wants and where she feels comfy and feels okay telling adults that? That's seriously cool. You raised kids pretty well if that's the turnout. If they didn't want their grandkids to know, then they shouldn't have done it. Not the asshole. Holy hell. What if she'd been jealous of your skin being smoother than hers? Would you have been told to scar yourself up to assuage her vanity? That's horrible and abusive. Mill and Phil choose each other over morality and reality, and you should definitely go NC with them. ETA, my mom has a very complicated and rough relationship with her mom, and once I got to a certain age I wasn't allowed to spend time with him alone as much because of that. And my mom told me in age-appropriate terms that we love grandma, but some of the things she says are wrong. I find it hard to believe this story. Not the asshole, you only told the truth. If that bother her, it's her husband's fault. Do you really think it's possible you're the asshole in this situation? Not the asshole. You are not responsible for the consequences of his actions. And you are certainly not sworn to secrecy about his actions either. Not the asshole. Monster-in-laws don't want to talk to you. This is a win-win situation for you. I am so sorry you had to go through this. Not the asshole. What he did was massively abusive and violating. How dare either of them do that to you and then try to make you the bad guy? Your daughter is very switched on and strong to cut her grandparents out like that. So amazing job you're doing raising them. Not the asshole. Actions have consequences. Their selfish actions cost them their DIL's trust and time with their grandkids. That's their fault. If the woman is vain, that's her personality. OFC, she had cancer and that's a rough go, but for a person whose vanity would be their downfall, it's necessary to depict that. When people have cancer and go through chemo, they might lose their hair. It's a side effect of the harsh treatment. That's something they know could potentially come. Some old man you're living with and don't bond with cutting off your hair like it's nothing isn't something to prepare for. It's assault. Just cause Mill had cancer doesn't mean that she wasn't a vain person. Those two things can exist. Your Mill is the asshole because there's no way she didn't know. Your Phil is a huge asshole here. Your kids made their choice. I don't consider you the R. The Phil definitely is. Your in-laws sound toxic as hell, and as your kids get older, I would have a lot of caution having them around your in-laws. An 8-year-old is old enough to know right from wrong, and as she, and your other kids, gets older, I think it would be wise to avoid.